Have you ever tried to just plug infinity into a math equation? You probably hit a brick wall, right? That's because treating infinity like it's just some massively huge number is guaranteed to break your math. It's not a number at all. It's a concept of endless, unstoppable growth. It's one of the most common traps students fall into. You plug it in and boom, the equation completely falls apart. But here's the secret. Figuring out how to handle this exact puzzle is the master key. It completely unlocks our understanding of a function's end behavior. We're talking about exactly what happens to a graph when it stretches infinitely far to the left or right. So, by the end of this explainer, you're going to master 3 key things. What limits at infinity actually mean, how to pinpoint horizontal asymptotes, and a mechanical shortcut for solving rational function limits that'll save you a ton of time on exams. Section 1, the infinity problem. Let's do a quick intuition check before we drown in formulas, because once you actually see the logic, the math just kind of falls right into place. Take this classic textbook function, f of x equals 2 plus 1 over x. Think about this in the real world. That 1 over x part, it's like having exactly 1 pizza and you're dividing it among x people. Divided among 10 friends, everyone gets a slice. But what if x is a million, or a billion, or an infinite number of people? Everyone gets basically 0 pizza. So, that 1 over x piece naturally approaches 0, and we're left with just the 2. And we can prove this pizza analogy mathematically too. Check out the numbers here. As we plug in bigger and bigger values for x, 10, 100, 10,000, watch the output. It drops from 2.1 down to 2.001. The function gets arbitrarily close to 2. It never perfectly hits it. But as x rockets off to infinity, our limit locks dead onto 2. Which brings us to our first core concept. We formalize this intuition with the definition of a horizontal asymptote. If the limit of our function as x approaches infinity equals some finite number L, then the horizontal line y equals L is a horizontal asymptote. It's basically an invisible magnetic guideline on your graph that the curve flattens out toward as we scroll infinitely to the edges. But wait, this always brings up a massive question. I hear this all the time. Can a function actually cross its horizontal asymptote? Because, we're always taught that you can never, ever cross a vertical asymptote, right? Well, the answer is a resounding yes. And this might blow your mind a little bit. Take a look at this equation. F of x equals cosine of x divided by x plus 1. Because we've got that cosine term sitting up in the numerator, this function is a natural oscillator. It inherently waves up and down. The math here actually allows the graph to slice right through its horizontal asymptote of y equals 1, an infinite number of times. As x gets larger, the waves get smaller and smaller, what we call a decreasing amplitude. But it weaves back and forth across that line forever as it flattens out. So absolutely, horizontal asymptotes can for sure be crossed. All right, section 2, the rational function shortcut. Now that we've got the basic intuition down and we've busted that common myth, let's look at the ultimate mechanical shortcut. You are definitely going to want this for your exams. Whenever you're dealing with a rational function, which, remember, is just a fraction with polynomials on the top and bottom, you don't have to guess. Just follow this 3-step procedure. First, find the highest power of x that is specifically in the denominator. Second, divide every single term in the entire fraction by that exact power. And third, apply your limit laws, which means any term with an x still stuck on the bottom just turns to 0. Seriously, memorize this trick. Let's make this crystal clear with an example. Here are 2 standard scenarios side by side. In the first equation, we have 3x minus 1 on top and 2x plus 5 on the bottom. Notice the degree, the highest power of x, is identical on both the top and the bottom. It's just x to the first power. But in the second equation, the numerator has an x squared, while the denominator has an x cubed, so the bottom is packing a higher degree. If we run our shortcut on that first scenario, we divide everything by x. All those terms without an x vanish to 0 as we push toward infinity. And what are we left with? Literally just the ratio of the leading coefficients. The horizontal asymptote drops right out as y equals 3 over 2. Boom. Done. It's that fast. But let's contrast that with the second scenario. Here, we divide everything by the highest denominator power, which is x cubed. Since the denominator's power outpaces the numerator, every single term on top eventually ends up with an x on the bottom. And that means the entire numerator gets dragged straight down to 0. The whole thing just collapses, leaving us with an asymptote of exactly 0. That is the magic of the shortcut. Moving on to section 3, infinite limits and polynomials. But wait,
What if the function doesn't actually flatten out at all? We've been looking at fractions and horizontal lines, but what happens with just regular old polynomials?
This is a super crucial distinction. Take a polynomial like f of x equals 5x cubed minus 3x squared plus 4. There are no asymptotes here. The end behavior is completely bullied by the term with the largest exponent. As x goes to infinity, those smaller terms, the 3x squared and the 4, they become mathematically invisible. The function behaves exactly like 5x cubed, meaning it just shoots straight off to positive or negative infinity. The biggest term always wins.
Okay, section 4, the formal definition. Pay close attention here because this is where exams usually get tricky. We've been using nice, friendly phrases like arbitrarily close and sufficiently large, which is awesome for intuition, but in calculus, your professor is absolutely going to demand the formal, rigorous proof.
Now, don't let this textbook definition freak you out. It's the formal definition of a limit at infinity. It literally states, for all epsilon greater than 0, there exists an n greater than 0, such that the absolute value of f of x minus L is less than epsilon for all x greater than n. Yeah, I know, it's a massive mouthful of Greek letters and math jargon. Let's actually translate that into plain English. It really just means arbitrarily close meets sufficiently large. Epsilon is simply a tiny error margin. It's how close we want to safely get to our limit line L. And n is just a specific, sufficiently large x value we have to pass on our graph to guarantee we stay trapped inside that tiny error margin forever. You basically set the trap with epsilon, and n tells you exactly where the graph falls into it. All right, section 5, summary and final thought. Before we wrap up this explainer, let's quickly lock in the key takeaways so you are completely bulletproof for your next test. First up, limits at infinity are all about end behavior, what the graph is doing at the extreme edges. Second, for rational functions, your golden rule is to divide by the highest power of x in the denominator to find your asymptote. Third, for standard polynomials, they don't flatten out at all. The highest degree term bullies the rest and completely dominates the curve. And finally, for the formal proof, just remember, epsilon means closeness and n means largeness. You are now officially equipped to handle infinite bounds on a graph, but I'm going to leave you with one final provocative thought. If we can mathematically conquer infinity as we travel left and right on a horizontal axis, what happens when the curve's slope itself goes to infinity? Like, what does a purely vertical mathematical wall even look like? That puzzle leads us straight into the wild world of infinite derivatives, and that is exactly what we're going to break down in our next explainer.